there is less problem, you know. So you have to you have to address the problem of madrasas first.
Oh, absolutely. And
And
the reason...
how do you address? That is the main
Well, I
thing.
mean, India obviously has the answer. You close them down. I mean, the Hindus have the greatest experience with all this stuff of anybody. And you know, the Hindus have been living with this for a long time, and they see what the problem is. But the Europeans are the people who run Europe they're brainwashed by this multicultural mentality. I mean, in the Netherlands, I honestly don't know exactly how many madrasas there are, but there's a hell of a lot of them, and the government helps subsidize them. And it's total insanity. They should be closing them down. Of course they should.
And that's when I gave an event in Ottawa last April, and in question period, this guy stood up and he introduced himself, a young guy in his 20s, and he was from Brunei, and he grew up in Brunei, and he had immigrated to Canada, and a young guy, and he said, you know, Brunei is a Muslim country, all my friends are Muslim, and they all went to England for education, and when they all came back after university, they were all radical. They got that in England, in the UK. Mm-hmm. That scared him. I mean, really, he couldn't believe it.
There is a big problem there with Europe itself.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm concerned about the press in these countries.
Yeah.
I think the situation, although in North America, it concerns me a lot. It concerns many of us. Still, we have a relatively healthy, wholesome situation, especially in the United States, in terms of a very diverse press and very well-funded institutes,
Yes.
think tanks, research institutes, which are putting out very slick, professional publications. You write for the City Journal.
Yes.
That's a wonderful one. You have magazines of very high quality.
Yeah.
So you get this tremendous diversity of opinion.
Yes.
It truly is a free press.
Yes.
What I'm hearing is that, or I get the impression from reading your book, from reading other books, that in Europe and especially in Scandinavia,
Yeah.
that the press is uniformly left, that there really is not an alternative press aside from the internet. So when you're writing, I don't know, do you have a day job or do you?
No, then, no. No, this is it, baby.
Okay. So when you're writing, where are you published in Norway, and where are you published in Europe? Are you only published over here? I mean, how are you do people know you in Oslo? Do you walk around and they say, oh, there's that guy, that American that writes all that inflammatory, horrible, hateful, Islamophobic stuff, or?
No, I've actually tried to keep a low profile in the country
Probably
in which
a good
I live.
idea,
It's
yeah.
too tiny a country. You don't want that. And the thing is that there have been a couple of times when I've written things in the New York Times about Norway, and every time anyone writes anything in the New York Times about Norway, the next day, the front page of the Norwegian newspapers is article in New York Times about Norway, and then
Not unlike Canada.
yeah, and then you get the attention, and then you're vilified for a few days, and you get very nasty emails and phone calls and text messages. But I have written a handful of times opinion pieces in newspapers. They don't generally welcome unwelcome opinions, but there have been a couple of times when after I've been attacked, I've been allowed to respond. But mostly I've written for the website of the Human Rights Service, which is based in Oslo, and which my friend Hege, whom I mentioned, runs. I wrote a column there for a while. I've written several times for the blog in Denmark of the Free Press Society. It's these blogs are really. I mean, Europe owes a lot more to.
Are they the only source? Are there no print outlets for?
You're talking about think tanks and stuff. That's almost, especially in Scandinavia. That's a very new thing. and there are a couple of little think tanks, but they're not a big thing over there. And there's not these sources of funding, for one thing, for diverse opinions. The media are really, the media establishment, especially, as you said, in Scandinavia, these are small countries. These people all went to journalism school together. There's one professor of journalism in Norway, and he used to be head of the Communist Party. So they come out of those of these courses, ranging from extreme left to extremely extreme left, and every now and then you'll get somebody who there are a handful of journalists in each of these countries who actually are reasonable and trying to get through get the message through about things like this. The Jyllandsposten is a terrific newspaper. Denmark actually has a better media picture than Norway or certainly Sweden. I mean, Sweden is just hopeless. But Jyllandsposten, the one that printed the Muhammad cartoons, that's a newspaper I have a lot of respect for. Yeah, I mean, you look at other, Le Figaro is a little bit to the right of Le Monde and so forth, but it's not that same breadth. There's not that same ideological breadth that you get in the States.
Maybe I'd like, if you allow me to, can we refine that question a little bit?
Yeah.
Is Europe experiencing the same thing that the McLean has experienced over here, where you have these pressure groups that are using like legal lawfare to basically intimidate newspaper, to force them to publish another perspective of what they have been offended with? So let's say, for an example, in the McLean's, they printed an article that was written by Mark Stein.
Yeah.
Some Muslims organization were extremely offended by it.
Yeah.
It was not necessarily anything that would be described that would fit the tab of the Human Rights Commission as described as hate speech. But yet these groups were offended, so they brought them to basically use our commissions to basically bring them to bend forward and print some page and print a reply.
What seems to generally happen is that if somebody actually gets an offensive opinion in print, then the entire journalist community just gangs up on them and vilifies them for a few days, and in order to discourage them from trying it again. There's no need for the commissions. There's no need for that kind of thing, because the media establishment is the way it is, if you know what I'm saying.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bon, Marc va traduire pour moi, d'accord? Comment espérez-vous, avec des politiques, de vouloir être intrusif? Par exemple, je vais donner un exemple, dans les hautes sphères, à l'ONU, on va autoriser, par exemple, l'Iran, l'Arabie saoudite, le Qatar, le Cuba, d'entrer de siéger au Conseil des droits humains, des pays qui en ont rien à foutre des droits humains. Alors,
So, how do you see when you're in society that are very inclusive, and we can have a more global sense with the UN, where you include tyrant states that don't even respect human rights, but because of our inclusive values, we include these intolerant countries into the fold.
Alors,
Yeah.
alors, on fait la même chose avec, par exemple, ici au Québec, bon, on dit, on va introduire les petites filles avec les voiles parce que, bon, il ne faut pas les laisser en dehors de la classe, soyons inclusifs. Et puis, bon, alors on va expliquer, grâce au nouveau cours de CR, éthique et culture religieuse, à quoi sert le voile, c'est inscrit dans la religion.